Ho, ho, ho! Wind Waker Unflooded fans and viewers, it is I, Santa Claus, and I have here my good friend Joe Pesci from Home Alone. Thank you all for coming to the podcast Unflooded Christmas episode. I'm so excited. This is actually all genuine, believe it or not. I've got my Santa hat. I look really cool. I think Santa hats just look cool, and I think we should wear them outside of Christmas. But regardless, this is Podcast Unflooded, the official podcast of Wind Waker Unflooded, and today I'm with my real co-host, Joe Kendrick, and I'm Alexander, by the way.
Well, it's good to meet everyone. It's good to meet you, Alex. It's good to be on the show. I've always wanted to be on Podcast Unflooded. I'm excited that, we've been talking about things we want to do for 2024. One of those big things is special guests, so it's so nice to be on the show for the first time. I think this is a great Christmas present to the Wind Waker Unflooded audience. This is our present to y'all. Y'all aren't getting anything else for Christmas. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. It's, Joe and I were talking before the show about, what do we want for Christmas? And what we really want is y'all to spend time with those you care about. Whether it's family, friends, pets, the rats that are in your kitchen that your landlord can't get rid of or really won't get rid of. I want everyone to have a good holiday, and that's just the truth. I'd also like to play Fortnite, and that's the thing, folks. Is what is a better Christmas present than the new Lego Fortnite game mode coming out? And I guess maybe that's dating when this episode was recorded, and I'm really sorry, but I feel like, Joe, before we can start, I'm in a holly jolly mood about all the gaming news, and I feel like I need to at least talk about that for a couple minutes.
Let's talk about the news. We got to break things down because this week, as we're recording this, it's pretty close to the time this video is going to be released. So this will still be relevant, I think, when the video drops. There's been several big things to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got Peach, a new, we've had Wario, we had Waluigi, and fans for years were wondering, when will we get another Wa character? A Wa Yoshi, a Wa Peach. And we got it from the official Waluigi designer. And, I mean, it's amazing. She's beautiful. It changes there's a trio now. I mean, it's not really in a game yet, right? It's old leaked, I say leaked, but it's old, concept art from the creator for, a Mario Tennis game, right? But if we believe, maybe Santa will drop a Wa Peach in a Mario game in our stocking sometime. Maybe next year, probably, But that's what I'm praying for, and that's what I want Santa to bring me. We've also got, there's just been a lot of Fortnite news. Peter Griffin in Fortnite. This is huge. This is bigger than Rick and Morty, in my opinion. We're getting a Lego Fortnite mode, which is amazing. I know that there are 12-year-olds right now who love both of those things and are freaking out. I'm an adult man who likes both of those things, and I'm freaking out.
I like at least 1.5 of those things, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Joe's a big Fortnite head. And then finally GTA 6. And that's huge for a lot of people.
It's been a long time coming.
And I think as of recording this, the Game Awards are going to happen, and so will there be a Tears of the Kingdom sweep? We don't know. But that's the gaming news I needed to get off my chest, because I think it's worth thinking about, folks. I'll see you all in 2025.
Right. There's big news. We've had some recent Switch ports as well. We just got Hogwarts Legacy on the Switch. I'm sure people will be playing that during the holidays. We just got the Arkham trilogy just dropped. I've been watching some videos about the Arkham trilogy, and those first 2 games, they look great. I'm so hyped. I'm gonna get the game soon myself, I'm sure. But man, Arkham Knight. I'm sorry, Alex. It's not looking good for Switch fans. Our hardware, we're not competing like we thought we'd be able to.
Yeah, I know there's been games that have suffered a bit on the Switch that are recent, like Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat was kind of surprising to me because I was like, it's not like an open world game, right? It's not like is it an optimization issue, but I do think ultimately the Switch is old, and even though the Arkham trilogy is old, obviously Arkham Knights, that was a Xbox One, PlayStation 4, I think, exclusive, right? That was not on the 360, PS3, so it's showing its age, and I don't know, maybe Santa will also drop us a new Nintendo console soon. We can only hope. but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like I feel bad because I want people to be able to experience games on the console of their choice. And I do think that's something Nintendo's going to have to like I think is aware of, and it's like okay, when we make the Switch 2, we want it to. I think it's going to be more powerful, duh, right? And I hope it is something that can kind of compete with at least the Series X and PS5. But then again, I don't know when the PS6 and Xbox 12 or whatever they call it is going to be out. I mean, in 2 years they could announce it, right? I mean, I'm scared that I feel like we're gonna. It's like that scene in Pacific Rim where like the kaiju keep coming in shorter and shorter intervals. We're getting new consoles in shorter and shorter intervals. But that could be an exaggeration, folks. Don't take my word for it.
It could be, and I'm sure that, every year, the Nintendo Switch is still a popular Christmas gift. I'm sure there will be people opening up their Switches, you know, this Christmas as well. I mean, it's still a current console. They're still making great games for it. We've had some great games this year, and I want the console to keep going. I think it has life ahead of it. As a Switch user, I want them to support my console, but definitely like, especially with Arkham Knight and Hogwarts Legacy, those have been big examples for me of just seeing it compete with other current gen consoles, and it's not holding up. I would love for Nintendo to make a console that is able to have those big third party releases that don't feel compromised at all. And it's tough because I love that portable aspect. I love the hybrid Switch function, being able to take it on the go, play it in the car, and I don't want to sacrifice that. So I totally get. I'm sure Nintendo's having this exact conversation right now too.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, the new year's looking bright, folks. Joe, before we move on, I mean, do we have any little letters from the good boys and girls of the Wind Waker Unflooded? Anything we want to talk about? Any comments or concerns? I've got a list right here.
Yeah. Let me pull up a list. I don't think we have the same list. Yours
I'm
is
doing
the
this. This
naughty
is
nice.
actually just a random piece of paper. I'm so into the role play actually. That Joe is off screen on my camera. Yeah, yeah. We both have it. Yeah, we have the same paper. I assure you.
I got my own list, right? I'm looking for some other questions. As always, feel free to comment down below if you have anything else that you want us to talk about. There were no questions commented at the end of the last podcast, so who knows?
No, that's okay. And we always try to look at like recent video, things. But you just did a video about kind of feedback and stuff recently about sort of like kind of talking to the audience about like how do you feel about what I'm producing? Is it too much? Is it too little? That's really the only big thing I think we would talk about. And you already talked about it, so I think we should go ahead and move on to the main topic of today's show. Joe, drum roll for you.
Oh, you want me to introduce the topic?
Yeah, I don't want
to. Yeah. I'll do it. As special guest of this episode, as the Christmas episode special guest. So we want to talk about the holidays. It's the Christmas special. We want to talk about some of our favorite memories with Christmas, and especially on this video game channel, focus channel, kind of share some of our gaming experiences from Christmas time. I know I have so many memories of different games that I opened on Christmas. And Alex, I know that you have some that you want to share as well. How about you get us started with some of your favorite Christmas gaming memories?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot I could talk about. Like, I remember getting my like Xbox 360 for Christmas, and I even got my PlayStation 2 before that for Christmas, or it could have been for my birthday, because my birthday's really close to Christmas, so sometimes things kind of slip through. But those were big ones because like those were really big consoles for me growing up, and really like defined, like, I don't know, like I think we are impacted by the things we consume and enjoy, right? And for me, video games were always a huge thing, right? Like I loved video games more than I loved movies and TV, even though I enjoyed those. But for me, I think a gift I got that meant a lot was, and it wasn't new at the time, but in early high school, and this was like a couple years after it had come out, so this was like 2013, 2014, I got the game Fallout New Vegas for Christmas. And it was I also got Fallout 3 at the same time. It was like a bundle. And I played both, but Fallout New Vegas was the one I fell in love with and played the most. And to me, that game means a lot for me, not just because it was a Christmas gift that I really enjoyed, but because it was a time when, to me, it was my first big like RPG I played that sort of felt like I was like, oh my gosh, this is what games can do with writing, with choice and consequence, with building a world that feels really believable, that is trying to say a lot. And that like to me has affected how I like as I how I approach things when I write, whether it's writing stories or characters or themes. This was a big one for me. And I think about it like I mean it's my Roman Empire. I think about it every day. Like it's genuinely I think it is my number one game. It's hard to choose because there are so many, but it's always going to be in my top three for sure.
That's a good answer. Yeah, and I've definitely seen like its effect in your writing, and you've talked about like the world building and just everything that came with that experience. And I always feel like with your, with your stories and scripts, whenever I read a piece of your writing, I can always tell that it's so well thought out and there's detail, and it just like you feel like you're diving headfirst into something where it's not just characters, plot, like basic like scene direction. Like there's a whole world there that like I could ask you a question about like what something would look like in the background. And you go, well, yeah, of course I have an answer. And I've always respected that. That like and I don't know. To me, it sounds like that kind of comes from that experience.
Hmm. Yeah, because I had played games that had an effect on me that showed me, like, I don't know. I remember even being young, when I was really young, early on the internet, there was that discussion of are video games art, right? And I think that's an opinion that I always was kind of like, yeah, I agree with that. I feel strongly about it more now than I probably did as a kid, of course. But like, I played, Shadow of Colossus, and I played like the Halo trilogy when I was young, and those are both games with like really strong stories and even like really strong, I would say, cinematography, like in their cutscenes, like and just really understand what makes games fun. I think they're very different games, but yeah, for me, it was like the scale of it in New Vegas. It's this, it's huge. It's this huge world. I mean, I've spent like hundreds of hours. I mean, maybe maybe more, honestly. Um, and I think it was just like it was writing and effort that they somehow did in like 11 months. I don't know how they did it, but um, I was astonished by, and I think I still am. I still think. And I know this is like a common thing, like New Vegas fanboys on the internet, like, oh, they just can't help but, praise that game. But I can't help it, man. I think there's writing in that is not been, that's rarely been topped over a decade later.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to keep going on. Like you talked about, like that debate about like our video games art, and I'd like to kind of have more of your thoughts on that because I don't think we've discussed that yet on this podcast. As doing this channel, like and to me, it does seem so obvious, especially nowadays, that like yeah, it's art as much as a film is art, as much as a book is art, and I think like getting lost in a piece of media. Um, like to me, like it's all just engaging in art, and like you interact with them differently, but to me, it's like they're um, similar experiences, and we should discuss them culturally similarly. But yet, I remember growing up, and there were huge debates, and there were discussions about if video games cause violence. It was just kind of this new untapped thing. It was a new medium. People weren't sure what to make of it, and as kind of like when we were kids, like I think especially when we were kids, maybe that's why we're still having this conversation, is because that's when video game graphics especially suddenly like cross that line. To me, like that's the kind of mid to especially late 2000s is when suddenly like there were games that were like realistic in a way that like games that tried to be realistic before just could never get close. GoldenEye for the N64 is not close. Even though when you play it, like it's a great game and it's immersive, right? And it captures you and it feels real. But like I think we grew up kind of during a time where suddenly, things started to really look more realistic. And I think that totally changed the cultural conversation. That's my theory.
No, I think so too. I think that's actually a good point. Like, I think going into the PlayStation 2, Xbox era, and then, of course, the 360 to PS3, like, yeah, things started to look really real. The blood and gore was looking real, and Yeah, I mean, I remember that too. And you know, my opinion is always just that, like, you know, we have a rating system, even if it's probably not perfect. Like, you know, they would not let me buy um, a lot of games I wanted to buy and without parents' permission. You know, I think they're very strict about that. And I mean, you know, there's stuff now like parental controls, and I think it's very much like, you know, it is what it is. Like you know, I think, you know, I think some probably kids probably shouldn't play, you know, some games. I don't know, but I mean that's up to the parents, and I guess really, I think the more interesting conversation is, yeah, video games or art. Yeah, I think for sure, but I think my definition of art, it's such a personal definition. I think for all of us, um, and for me, art is just kind of two things. It like is it creation? Did you have to do something to make it, right? You know, was it thought out and planned? You know, that kind of thing. And then there's also like the emotional response. Like, did it make you feel something? Even if it's something as simple as like joy. You know, even if I'm playing like Pong, I'm feeling joyful that I'm beating my buddy Joe in Pong. Like, I don't, you know, and I know some people are going to say like, well, would you put Pong in a museum? Well, I mean, yeah, probably because it's old, but I think it is like a very personal definition, and like I think it's totally fine if you say that it is art, and I think it doesn't, you know, because I'm sure there are games I don't like that people are like, wow, this is amazing, and it gets all this praise and it gets all this stuff, but like I don't, you know, I just don't let it bother me. I don't care. I think we should celebrate the time and effort that goes into games, especially now that games have gotten so big and they're getting bigger and fancier. I mean, like we just talked about gaming news, right? And I think about like GTA 6, and obviously it's maybe not raw gameplay, and it's, you know, gonna look different probably once you get to playing it, but dang, it's crazy. It looked like real life, you know?
Right, right. And I guess like in this discussion of video games and art too, I think about breaking it down into the components. And to me, like I feel like as a kid, and I started to kind of put the pieces together, and I'm like, well, everyone agrees that music is art, and music is a part of video games. You know, people agree that writing is a form of art, and there's great writing in some of these games. You know, and you can keep doing that. There's the visual arts, and this is, you know, like this is I don't know, like what's the difference? This is 24 paintings a second, you know? So we're not 24. If it's video games, it's 30 or 60
Yeah,
or
who
whatever.
knows?
Right?
My computer's bad. It is doing 24 paintings a second, maybe less.
Right, right. But yeah, it's like it's clearly like, you know, video games are they're made of art, so I think they're an art form too. And I think just now, I think it's a little more popular to say that, and it's less controversial. And the game design art form within itself is a whole nother, like that's a whole nother medium. That's a whole nother thing to get into with it with its own. I don't know, and we don't have to get into game design as an art form, but even just the construction of interesting gameplay and like how to get you into the flow state, and you know, in the same way that a movie can immerse you, like it's a whole art form that I think is super interesting. And I do think it's less controversial than it used to be now.
Hmm. For sure. And I think, you know, I guess, like I kind of was saying before, but I guess I want to clarify. But like, I think we all enjoy art differently, right? And you know, we put paintings in museums, and we put movies in theaters and on DVDs and stuff. And I think like I said, it is just such a personal thing, and I really do love I love games, I love art, and it's like I know Thanksgiving's passed, but I'm thankful for games. I'm thankful for the games that I think have being like the primary media I consumed for a very long time. I think really shaping me, because I think when we think about, for instance, good writing or good music, I think even if you play games a lot, you may not think like, oh, good music. You may not think about the Zelda soundtrack. You know, you may think about like, oh yeah, there's like Beethoven and like Tupac Shakur and like all these great musicians, and even yeah, I mean, great. I mean, Joe's laughing, but I'm being for real.
They are great.
Um,
I don't disagree. I just love that they were the
yeah,
two
I
that you
mean,
said.
um, but I guess just I guess what I was trying to say was like I think we all enjoy things in our own way, and I think games can introduce us to like what I think what got me into writing. Like I always liked movies, and that was kind of part of it, but I think it really was video games too. especially the like interactive medium of them, which I think makes it like one of the most unique mediums. Is the ability to interact and change it. Um, and that's something that like you can't really capture in a book or on a TV show.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's something I'm interested to see that keep getting pushed. And as I don't know, I guess that's something that excites me about like hardware, like changing and evolving, because like those memory constraints do change the way that you can create games, which I think makes it a really interesting art form to look at right now. In film, like there are ways in which the way you can make a movie can change from year to year, and we've seen different revolutions, but the art form hasn't fundamentally changed within our lifetime. But video games, it's like every couple years there'll be a new system that can do new things, and that does make more things possible. It's not just the theory of game design is a constant that you can always go back to, and there are like fundamentals of game design, but in so many ways it's an ever evolving medium. And I think that's fascinating. I want to share some of my own Christmas experiences, Alex, too.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked so much this episode.
That was intentional. I wanted to let you talk. I talk so much on my channel, Alex.
It's just I'm trying to give y'all a break from Joe. That's all I try to do is give y'all a rest. But yes, Joe, I do want to hear your Christmas, your games that you love, and go on ahead, old sport.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, just to be transparent, like I do this podcast so that, yeah. Anyway, we already said it. Yeah, you listen to me all the time on these modeling time lapses. Like you don't need to just hear me on these podcasts. Yeah, I guess like one of my favorite Christmases. It was always a great Christmas whenever I would open up the box and there would be a new Zelda game, and this is a Zelda channel, right? And it didn't happen often. But I think one of my favorite unboxings that I got the most out of was, yeah, and y'all aren't gonna like this. Y'all are gonna, like the Wind Waker fan, y'all aren't gonna like this. But the truth is, when Skyward Sword came out, Alex, it wasn't bundled with just the game. And classic Zelda fans, y'all know this. In that box there was the 25th anniversary CD that was produced with a live orchestra of these classic Zelda tracks. And I tell you, like Skyward Sword, I had trouble getting into that. But the CD that came with it, I mean, that's still one of my favorite albums, Alex. And like that's one of my favorite like Zelda Christmas memories. Is just because as a writer, like when I was writing scripts as a teenager and like started getting into storytelling and writing, like that CD was one of the things I would put on and listen, and it would inspire me. I think in a maybe a similar way that your relationship is with New Vegas. It's just like that was the thing that really guided some of my creative growth, and it was something that was bundled with Skyward Sword, and I'm sure it influenced me as a composer too, as a musician. That CD I feel like is like if I was going to write for an actual orchestra, if I had the chance to actually conduct, I would want my arrangement to sound the way that CD is arranged, and that's one of my favorite memories. It's not necessarily my favorite Zelda game, and it's not necessarily the best present I ever got, but it's something that like that music that came with that CD, that was one of my favorite Zelda Christmas memories.
No, yeah, that's awesome. I love when games would like because I guess I still remember, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, getting physical games and on the drive home you're reading the manual. But I remember when it would come with stuff like I remember as a kid I played the Sly Cooper games, and I remember in the third game they introduced these like levels that were, and you didn't have to play them this way, but they were in 3D and they had like little extra visuals you could see if you put on these like 3D glasses, and these were really cheap, right? But it came with these like 3D red and blue glasses that you could put on and play these levels in, and it was just such a like little thing, but it was kind of cool. I mean, it was really cool, I think. Even though I don't even know if I could even get it to work super well, but I like that. I think that's awesome, and that's why like find myself as I play games less and less, and I think like, oh, it's more of a bigger purchase for me. I kind of look at those special editions that come with like stickers and stuff, and look at those with like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe that's the thing I should be looking into now as someone who's an adult and all that, and is playing games less. But yeah, I love that, and the music. Yeah, music's great. I mean, I started listening. I used to never really listen to music when I wrote. like a few nights ago, I will admit, I was writing and I started listening to Eminem, and the words were just flowing. But that's awesome, and I guess just like I'm curious to hear about like if there's a particular project you remember with that music or a particular track that just really speaks to you, from the Zelda 25th anniversary recording.
That's a great question. After I answer this, I want to know your favorite Eminem song. We'll talk about that a little more. Maybe I'll go ahead and ask that. Alex, which one are you vibing with the most right now?
Honestly, and this is gonna maybe not come as a surprise to Joe, but I really like Venom. I also like Monster, and he's not alone on that track. Rihanna's there too.
It's a good track.
I'm friends with the monster. Like
Classic.
as a child, you would only hear Rihanna's part, but as an adult, you hear Eminem, and it's the complete song. And honestly, I will admit it's the Eminem Fortnite event that got me listening to his music again. Like, I won't lie to you, it's not something I used to listen to it a lot more, and then I was listening to it again. I was like, holy crap! Like, rap god. Like, I'm typing like a speed demon.
The thing is, like, Eminem's like legit talented, and like I got into him late too. I want to answer the question you asked before then. I felt like I got into Eminem late because I started listening to him in like high school, which for me was, not to dox myself, but like this was like the mid 2010s is when I started listening to Eminem. And like some of his songs were like 10, almost 15 years old at that point. And so I felt like it's like I felt like I was discovering older music at that point, which almost sounds silly with an artist like that. But but I mean, he's got great stuff, and it's I think, I don't know, just like the way that he's used the rap medium is incredibly personal, and he's not the only one. There's so many great rap artists. It's such a personal medium, but I think he's really excelled, and so, I'm here to hype up Eminem.
I want to explain Eminem for the Zelda fans out there who aren't familiar, and I'm going to use it in Zelda terms. Eminem is like Link, and Dr. Dre is like the old man in the cave who gave him the sword. But yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I want to hear your answer to my question.
That's so funny.
This is a great Christmas episode. It seems like we've been drinking eggnog, maybe. I don't know. I feel like it's just been a very silly fun, but it's the jolly Christmas spirit. What can I say? The spirit has possessed us.
No, that's how I feel. Sometimes I'll do a modeling time lapse and I'll butcher the intro. And my issue, Alex, is I'll keep recording. Like, I'll butcher the intro. I'll be like, "Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're doing Wind Waker Unflooded again." I just keep rolling. Like, screw it.
Yeah, I won't lie. This is me telling on myself a little bit, but like 8 minutes ago or whatever, I just noticed that like my mic has been peaking really bad, and I was just like, Joe's gonna hate me in the editing process. Like, it might be, maybe I should mention a re-record, but we're kind of in so deep.
That's up to you. We can listen to it in post.
I mean, if you're watching this, you know what happened. You know what we decided to do.
We'll listen to it in post, and if we have to re-record it, we will. So be it. It's been a lovely conversation. I'd love to have it again.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I can definitely, because I admit, I could have gone. We could have had a 4-hour discussion on Fallout New Vegas. I really would have. Like, I could have listed examples that are so meaningful to me, and maybe I should have, right? But I also was just like, let's keep it moving. I value y'all's time, believe it or not.
I do want to answer your question though.
Yeah.
I want to circle back, because I mean, the short answer is like, is there a specific project of mine? Excuse me, I just saw you like flick your hat.
Sorry, I'm having fun with this ball on the top of my. Please
like
go ahead. Please, that we are. I hate to say this, but our audiences are on the edge of their seat. They need release, Joe, for the love of God. Answer the question.
Oh man. There was a short story I wrote in middle school that became the basis for The Raven, and I distinctly remember listening to it during the writing for that process. Old school Joe fans know The Raven. It's one of my high school projects. Every now and then I talk about it on the channel because it's a good throwback. It is not my best film quality wise, but it was creative, and dadgummit, high school Joe made what he wanted to make, and I think it's still Like, I think it's still the project I wanted to make, even though I've gotten better as a filmmaker since. So, but that was one of those that I remember listening to that soundtrack a little bit for, and in subtle ways. Like it's not this big epic thing that needs like Zelda music behind it, but like I think about like the Kakariko Village track on the 25th anniversary CD, this like very, melodic kind of ballad. I love the way it sounds. My favorite track on it, I mean, is of course the Wind Waker Suite as a Wind Waker fan, and of course like the overture because I think that's where Dragon Roost Island is. I remember the first time I listened to the CD, I was with my family, and my siblings were like, "All right, we got to go to the Wind Waker one because I want to hear how Dragon Roost Island sounds." And we listened to the Wind Waker Suite, and there wasn't Dragon Roost Island in it. And we were like, "No, why didn't they use it?" And it was just in the overture that we had skipped. So I remember that. Oh, I was so excited to hear
back
it
in the
with
day,
a live
folks,
orchestra.
CD players, it wasn't easy. There, I don't know. It wasn't really that bad, actually. I mean, I don't know, but I think I'm glad you said The Raven. Like, that's a movie of yours that, like, I will admit, I was Joe's biggest fan. I would always watch what he would produce, but The Raven was something I did not immediately watch. And I don't know when I ended up getting around to it, but then I was like, yeah, this is good. Like, this is good stuff. And
You don't
I
have
know
to
we've talked
lie.
before.
You don't have to pretend.
No, I'm not. Like, I mean, that's how I felt back then. I haven't rewatched it in a bit, but like, I always I look at things materialistically. Not that does not mean I'm vain, but I think about Joe's material conditions back then. I think about what he had access to, how his brain was developed, and like, yeah, I mean, it's a high school project, but like, I think you had some ideas and you were bold, and I appreciate that. The boldness. I mean, and they called him a madman, frankly, but
And that's
I
how
appreciate
Wind Waker Unflooded is possible. Is just because I'm still crazy enough to like have a huge idea that's going to take way too long to complete, and I'm just like, yeah, I could probably do that.
And that's how Wind Waker Unflooded was born. Is Joe was crazy enough and fearless enough to do it, and I'm thankful for it.
And I'm thankful that you're thankful, and I'm thankful for all of you watching. You're crazy enough
Yeah,
to
this has
join me.
been an episode.
Y'all, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I don't have a drink. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. You
Yahoo. And happy holidays, of course, as well. But yeah, I mean, I think of Christmas. Like, to me, Christmas has always been just like a general holiday. Because I mean, I mean, people like when people say I want to put the Christ back in Christmas. I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if he's really there anymore. Like, to me, it's about Santa and elves and eggnog and cookies, and it's just a general holiday. But obviously, some people do view it as a Christian holiday. So I just say happy holidays. It's actually not that big of a deal, folks. I think if you are upset about that, I'm sorry. I don't mean to call anyone out. I think it's okay. Like, I think let's do a breath. Like, let's do a breath.
Well, you can say it's about Santa, but like Santa was a Christian.
Allegedly, yeah, we don't know. I mean, the archaeological evidence is still sort of murky in a lot of ways.
There's literal archaeological evidence. Like, we have his tomb. Like, we can pull up the grave of Saint Nicholas.
I don't know, but we also have that documentary, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, from Rankin Bass, and it's very much like he meets the toy makers to the king, and they all happen to be, short. And I don't know, y'all can watch that. I mean, you decide what you want to believe. Anyway, Joe, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I think we're coming up to the end of our time. Y'all, don't be afraid to comment down below any future questions that you have that you want us to talk about in our next episode. Because, like it or not, we're going to keep recording. And actually, I think it's time maybe to let y'all know that coming up real close, we're getting into 2024. We're about to have some more special episodes of Podcast Unflooded featuring a couple of special guests. So stay tuned to Podcast Unflooded to be up to date and subscribe to the channel so you'll be there when those episodes release. You're going to want to see them. You're going to want to see this.
We got Shigeru Miyamoto on the podcast, folks. Y'all aren't ready.
One of these days we'll get them.
We got Mario himself. We could not afford Link. But I just want to say, and Joe, say it with me here, thank you all for watching, and peace and love from us to y'all.
And cut.
Bye bye.